Hey everyone, welcome back to Gear 182. We're here with another episode in the series of the gear used by the band, kind of tour by tour. I think we're going to try to go with. So we last time we did Loser Kids, which ended end of November '99. So this one, the next tour was the Mark, Tom, and Travis show. Um, not
Which saying that the album of Mark, Tom, and Travis show is actually from the Loser Kids tour.
yeah. So, the start of 2000, they were doing, Howard Stern. They were on Saturday Night Live. They played Big Day Out, which is one of there it is. I have mine somewhere too. I'm not even sure where it is, but they played Big Day Out, which is their, for me anyways, that was the big live video that they had. I still regularly play it on YouTube. So March 7th, the band went on TRL to promote Adam's song, and then they announced the Mark, Tom, and Travis show for the summer. So I could be wrong, but I think they played 35 shows between May and July. So quite a few shows in such a short amount of time. Yeah, the artwork is crazy.
If you own this album, followers, and you have a red barcode, guess what? First edition.
There it is.
Right when you don't have the first edition, I hate to break it to you, if it means anything to you.
There's a lot of collectors of, for me, I'm so stuck in the gear portion of it, but there's collectors that collect the vinyls, that collect, every single EP, which is awesome. I just, it's a lot of knowledge you have to have.
Collecting all those versions of California is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's a lot. I remember even when, just for Angels and Animus, when Lifeforms came out, it's how many different color prints and whatnot they made. But I mean, collectors are collectors, right?
Yeah.
So they released the Mark, Tom, and Travis show, Animus Strikes Back, the one that Brian you were just holding, on November 7th, 2000. It was the first and only live album the band did release, so still pretty cool. That was I remember that was like that for me. That was one of the first albums that I had from the band. I obviously listened to them on tape and whatnot, but the one that I went out and actually bought myself was that one. It was pretty special for me, anyways, listening to all the all of the stuff live for the first time.
Came out 2 days after my 14th birthday, so it was what I really wanted, and my mom was cool with it. And then when she heard me listening to like the jokes, the banter in between, she was like, "What did I buy you?" So
That's funny. When I was looking up some stuff on this, one of the reviews, one guy said it was an hour and 25 minute set and about 25 minutes of actual music, and the rest was banter. It was just funny just to read that because it really showed the back and forth, and it was more than just a band. I think when that
I
was
mean, tell people this, and feel free to cut this out if you feel it's necessary, Stefan. But like, I guess we should tell people that they really did play these sets, but it was polished in a studio later with Jerry Finn, and they
yes.
try to keep that quiet. Like every time it's asked or brought up, even Jerry Finn back in the day would not like openly admit that that was what was done. But I just feel like people should know that.
Yeah, and I think we kind of know too that Tom sometimes could be a sloppy player when playing live, and these are pretty polished. So
I mean,
uh,
the polishedness of it, and I felt like it was necessary. That's what they do with music today.
yeah.
I feel like it was ahead of their time, and I support it.
Well, Aaron, the producer that does all the Tom stuff now, just posted recently doing a live Angels and Airwaves Lifeforms from the tour, and that was, I mean, they're polishing it up. That's what happens, right?
Yeah.
But it's for when it comes to the gear, which is kind of what we're here about. Not too much of a difference. A couple guitars were added for Tom, so we can kind of get into that. So it's a pretty famous picture of all of it.
Stefan, what was added from Loser Kids?
So from the Loser Kids to now, the two that were added were the yellow and the orange. from my understanding, is right in the beginning of 2000, Tom requested the orange, as we covered in a previous video, and then for a backup, he got the yellow. So, a lot of people think that it was just the orange that was used on Mark, Tom, and Travis, which majority of them, what it is orange, but there are a couple pictures from a couple shows that shows that he did use the yellow during this tour too, which is kind of cool. Now,
people who message you on Instagram and ask for these photos, they're so blurry. They're so far away. We don't have any really cool, high-quality film shots.
Unfortunately, yeah. If you want them, send us a message. I can send them. They're like Grant said, they are pretty blurry, but it's definitely the yellow that he's playing.
And the only picture I want to throw up is that the yellow was made January 2000, so it lines up perfectly with this.
Yeah. So it seems like for the tours, on every set, Tom would typically play either one of the two greens for the main songs, and that he would use the teal and the silver for the capo songs, like What's My Age Again and whatnot. So, I mean, I looked at a lot of pictures, a lot of videos, and it's very rare did he do, steer away from that main guitar, which it could have been either green, depending.
And that was a pretty popular photo with the guitar. I can't even get it lined up correctly, but with the guitars. Yeah. On that rack there.
It's funny, when I first saw that, I didn't think that was the orange. I thought for sure, like, oh, Tom had like a peach color, some sort of peach color guitar.
Yeah, that right there.
That's yeah. So that shows all of them that he had that on that tour. So I mean, nothing else that's really new. The two greens were I think the mains. The orange was his main for Adam's song, and the teal silver, he would use for the capos. Cool. For Mark, again doing all the videos and pictures, he played. He had two, and typically on a set for a show, he would just have the one bass. He would just play the whole set with one bass.
One was on the rack. Like, can we assume that the blue is there somewhere, or no?
So I do have a picture of the rack, and this is this was taken on the Mark, Tom, and Travis show, and it's just the two that was there. Granted, I don't see the yellow or the teal on here, so that blue could have been off. But I mean, for Mark, it's pretty straightforward, standard tuning. For bass. National,
let's say they're on top of the world band and two basses. I mean, maybe there's just something like a generic bass somewhere in the back or whatever, but it just blows my mind.
Yeah, considering Tom had had all of his here and Mark had two, it's kind of crazy to think of, really. The two ones that Mark did have were Alex Perez. Rob Thorne did the inlays for the fish that we talked about on the Loser Kids video, but same thing. Not too much has changed. Yeah, I mean, we can kind of talk a little bit about the amps that was used. So Tom, and this is when Tom started to use more of the effects rack. Anything you want to talk about with this, Brian?
Yeah, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that we just don't know, and we don't know how all these rack effects went together, because if you read magazine articles, they always talk about how Tom was known to only use a flanger and distortion, and that's it. And if we stick to that logic, then he used a dual rectifier or a triple. I mean, the only difference between the dual and the triple is channels, so it's not tone. And so he used a rectifier, and he used a JCM, either 8 or 900, and blended them. And then had, which one did he use for the clean? Like, he used, I guess, the Marshall for the clean.
Yeah.
Mesa for the distortion. And honestly, one of my messages with his old tech, Doug, he even said that the Mesa was his favorite sounding Blink era amp. And we kind of feel like Tom had a really close friend that worked at Gibson, and he ended up working at Vox,
It was Fox.
and that was a heavy influence on why he moved to Vox. So it's not saying that we think that Tom liked the Mesa better. It's just I can see, oh, my really good friend is going to Vox, so I probably want to try those too since he's a representative for Vox. And but anyways, back to these amps. He sold like the 212, right? 212 cabs, and then the head at the DeLegacy sale. These are custom colors, but you can get them yourself. They're not like custom to Tom, but you can actually go on Sweetwater. It's like a snakeskin wine red or something with a tan
it's like
grill.
an alligator or something.
Yeah, you can build these,
Yeah.
and them almost identical. Maybe little features have changed. Notice it's got a tan handle, and the piping, it looks like it's either black or silver. So you could replicate these. It's not just like, oh, he's Blink, we're gonna make custom colors. No, it was probably those options at the time. And then as far as the rack stuff goes, I do know that a really popular preamp that people were using on there was that Marshall one.
Yeah.
Is that called JM1? And then a lot of these famous artists get these Voodoo Lab updates on them. They sound so sick. But the problem is like even people that have bought these from like Reverb or DeLegacy sale, yeah, he has settings on there. But how much of this rack stuff is blended with his amps back in the early 2000s? We just don't know, you know?
It's so much uncertainty, especially with like the amount of effects that goes into that rack. Like, you know, I know a lot of people ask, have even messaged us, that what settings does he use for, or did he use for like this part of the tour or this album? It's so hard to say, right? Like, you know, I think, Brian, you talked about in the previous episode, like depending on even what room you're in.
Yeah.
It so varies. Like, yeah.
It's just hard to say. And one of my messages with Doug, I'll just say really quick, you know how Angels and Airwaves had those Mesa 212s in the front of the stage and they looked really cool? He'd walk on them. Those weren't even plugged in.
Yeah.
2006, they weren't even plugged in.
Yeah.
He told me that.
Just for
So it's really hard to narrow down the amp stuff, but we're trying to do the best we can with the resources we have left.
Yeah. I will say if you were lucky enough to get the stuff on Reverb, you could mimic it pretty well if you had the right amps anyways, but it's a lot of money and it's a lot of tinkering, I think, to find that exact, like, the tone is so hard to perfect with these things.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, unfortunately for
I would want to I kind of just make my own tones that I feel like sound super close, but I understand why people want to do it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But it's the chase, right? It's fun to try to find it. For Mark's stuff, I looked. There's not any high res pictures from the tour
We just
on Mark's side.
Ampeg sponsored artist, right?
Yeah. So it's he used
an SVT. I don't know which number, but he's an SVT head with an 810 cab. So, and there's 3 810s there.
Yeah.
So it's massive, and I bet that can blow the windows out of your house. It's so loud.
Oh,
but
yeah.
we just don't know. And, you know, Mark will answer questions. So, like, if somebody can ask him, maybe he remembers exactly the model head and cabs. He later used those vintage model cabs, like, in the Neighborhoods tour.
Yeah.
But back then, it was just the regular Ampeg, you know, the ones that you Guitar Center. But, I mean, those huge ones.
But it's it's pretty cool to see kind of where it all where it all came from after this too. This is kind of the first part, I think, to the next part, which is the take off your pants, where they did switch it up a little bit, but one
orange cases, and Mark always had blue, right?
Yeah, and that started for this one. Well, Mark had blue, I think, before, but Tom would use the green. Right before this one, it was green, and then before the green, it was like a purple for the last, I think, part of the Dude Ranch, if I'm not mistaken. and he
Cool.
used this one up for quite a bit. So at when in November 7th, when the album came out, it came with a song that's called "Man Overboard," which this was the for Mark Thomas Rabbit show. So next, I guess, would be the Act of Takeoff.
Yeah,
the next one. That's when they started getting some new ones.
And that is a whole new era of guitars and basses, so that'll be exciting for any gearheads that look forward.
I'm excited to go over that, just to do some research and how stuff came to be and whatnot. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, guys, again, hopefully you're liking the series. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you have any questions for us, whatever, you can find us on Instagram. Where our messages, DMs are always open. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But Brian, anything you want to say?
No, just tell us what we're wrong about in the comments. We love it. It helps the video. Just give us attention, but we really hope that we're worthy of your upvotes.
Yeah.
So
thanks, guys, and we will see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye.